Turbine is a Schwarzkopf shuttle loop at Walibi Belgium, but it is way different than the other installations. For one, it was extensively overhauled by Gerstlauer. Two, it is completely enclosed. Do these differences make it better or worse than the other shuttle loops? Find out in this review. The then Walibi Wavre opened Sirocco in 1982. This was the first Schwarzkopf shuttle loop in Europe. It more notably opened as the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the Benelux. The ride's history got really interesting in the late 1990s, though. You know how several people fear roller coasters getting stuck upside down, but it rarely happens? Well, it actually happened with this ride in 1997. After a low-powered launch, the train had enough momentum to complete the course going forwards, but when in reverse directions, the train stalled perfectly atop the vertical loop. Riders were stuck in that position for nearly 1.5 hours until local firefighters pulled the train down. Around the same time, locals really started to voice their opposition to this coaster. There were a few homes less than 300 feet from the ride, and they were irked by the ride's roar and the guests' screams. So for the 1999 season, the launch and loop were completely enclosed. The park also took the opportunity to rebrand the coaster as Turbine. Towards the end of the 2008 season, Turbine closed for a few reasons. The ride was still popular, but it needed a major refurbishment. The park contemplated selling it, but they knew they likely would never get permission to build another large coaster on that plot of land due to the nearby residents. The ride sat idle for a few seasons. Then in 2012, the park announced the ride would receive a major overhaul and reopen for the 2013 season as Psyche Underground. This was both a mechanical and cosmetic transformation. The ride originally operated with a flywheel launch. This is a really rare launch system that has only been used on a few Schwarzkopf shuttle loops and some of the motorbike coasters. A flywheel attached to a cable pulls the train down a launch track. While this was an efficient launch system, we have seen many of the older shuttle loops close, and one of the others in Montezuma's Revenge at Knott's Berry Farm is currently closed for its own overhaul that will change out the launch. Walibi contracted Gerstlauer to build a new train and change the launch to linear induction motors, or LIMs. I am surprised they didn't use linear synchronous motors, or LSMs, because that is what they typically use for their thrill coasters. The park also covered the spikes, thus completely enclosing the entire attraction. This further appeased the locals. And last but not least, it received a funkadelic theme to tie in with the new fabulous city area. The coaster had a busy exterior with all sorts of signage. It was themed to kind of look like street shops. Then the interior was dark with flashy multicolored lights and a fun audio score. There also was a cool Easter egg in the queue, as the old flywheel was kept on display with a sign saying it was the escape turbine. In 2025, to coincide with the opening of the Megalodon roller coaster, the area was transformed into Dock World. This led to Psyche Underground being rethemed to Turbine. The exterior received a facelift to have some fake brick and windows. Then, playing into the ride's history, parts of it are boarded up and there are signs saying the turbine is still working. Then the ride received yet another new train to better fit the theme. While this coaster can only operate with one train due to the shuttle nature, the prior one is available as a spare if needed. This station then has a dark and foreboding theme. You have pinwheels spinning that resemble the biohazard symbol. Then whenever a train cycles, the station flashes and the sounds of electricity crackle. Now unfortunately, the queue itself is rather dull though. I get that they were going for an industrial look, but there is not much to see. It is mostly just a long hallway with corrugated metal and some posters. The queue moves a bit slower than the park's other coasters due to the shuttle nature. The train at least holds a good amount of people, as it has 7 cars with 2 rows of 2 to seat a max of 28 riders per cycle, and staff members load it reasonably quickly, so it typically ends up with a manageable wait. Usually, it hovers around the 15 to 30 minute mark. It is typically a walk-on at the very start and end of the day, as many people start with the park's headliners or some of the attractions closer to the front gate. If you are visiting on a particularly busy day, Turbine is included in the park's paid Speedy Pass system. You go up the exit. If you use this method, you are assigned a row, and you don't really have flexibility where you sit, but you typically board the next train at least. If you utilize standby, the grouper lets enough people into the station to fill the next train. If the row you want is already occupied, you can ask to wait an extra cycle, and they'll usually allow you to do so. I think this coaster is way better up front. Not only do you get the unobstructed view and the wind in your face sensation on the launch, but you travel higher up the far spike. All versions of this ride have had comfortable trains. All of them have used individual lap bars and headrests, and the ride is extremely smooth. This is typically the case with Schwarzkopfs, especially with their shuttle loops. It was worth noting here though because it was refurbished by Gerstlauer, who can be hit or miss in the smoothness department. Once secured, red lights begin to flash. You also hear the electricity pulsing. You slowly roll forwards, and all of a sudden, you take off. One of the best aspects about launch coasters is the surprise when the launch engages. On the older version of Turbine, there was an auditory countdown. On Psyche Underground, there was both an auditory countdown in addition to a TV screen. With the newer version of Turbine, there is no warning, which I actually think is an improvement. The launch has a mild initial kick, but it has decent pull by the end, and the darkened environment accentuates the speed as you accelerate up to 53 miles per hour or 85 kilometers per hour. I think the old flywheel launch had more of a punch though. While I never rode the original Turbine, I have ridden a few other Schwarzkopfs utilizing the flywheel launch. The initial yank in those rides had more power to it. The acceleration curve on Psyche Underground and the newer version of Turbine feels more gradual than those rides. This version has the best loop of any shuttle loop though. It offers extreme positive Gs anyway, but it is ultra disorienting experiencing this inversion in total darkness. I could tell I was graying out as my head started to feel fuzzy. You then ascend a 138 foot or 48 meter tall spike. This too is pretty trippy because it's pitch black, and it offers some nice weightlessness in the front half of the train, particularly if you are in that very front car because you travel the furthest up the spike. It is much mellower in the back half of the train because you barely make it past the initial incline, but you'll still get a pinch of weightlessness there. You then fall backwards to repeat the course in reverse. This time around, the vertical loop is illuminated by a strobe effect. This is quite disorienting, especially when paired with such a forceful element. The loop is not quite as intense as the first pass in raw Gs because you have bled off some speed, but is still a very forceful inversion that piles on the positive Gs. You then careen backwards down the launch track and shoot through the station. You then have a backward spike. On most shuttle loops, you travel up a majority of this element, so you typically get some really nice weightlessness in the back rows. However, both Psyche Underground and the newer Turbine brake before the spike, so the train only travels up a fraction of the spike. This means the front view cars don't even travel up it. In the back car, you get a pinch of float because you just barely reach the max incline for a second, but it is nothing compared to the forward spike earlier in the ride or the back spike on the other installations. You then roll back into the station, ending the experience. One of the biggest cons with this coaster, and the model in general, is that it's really short. Not only does it have just 722 feet, or 220 meters of track, but there aren't many elements and it has quick pacing, so it's over in a flash. But it is a rush. So, what would I rate Turbine? I would give this coaster a 7 out of 10. This is a fun coaster, particularly if you're in that front car. The launch has some oomph once it gets going. The vertical loop is one of the best out there. It is so intense and dizzying. Then the far spike has some nice weightlessness, and the dark environment enhances the experience. The coaster may be short, but I like most of what it does. Now, is the new Turbine an upgrade? Yes and no. I think the physical ride itself is weaker in this iteration than it was in the original Turbine. As I noted, the old flywheel launch had a bit more of a forceful acceleration, and the final spike was far superior because you traveled up most of it. However, I think the overall experience may be a smidge better here because of the atmosphere. There is some good theming in the station, and the darkened layout makes it super disorienting. I like the more serious theme of 2025's Turbine over Psyche Underground, and I like how it was tied back in a dock world. But I do miss the old hardware in the queue, and the soundtrack that was present with Psyche Underground though. Those are my thoughts on Turbine, the refurbished shuttle loop in Walibi Belgium. What are your thoughts about this coaster? Which version do you like best? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.